Good morning, everyone. So today I'm back after a hiatus of 3 days. So precisely, I thought that maybe it is time for to end something, to start with something good and something inspirational, which can be used somewhere. So there's this story I was reading that once two monks were traveling in an isolated path, and they encountered one woman. And as we know in Buddhism, monks are not allowed to touch women. So the woman was in quite precarious state and she was not able to walk. So she asked one of the monks that, or in fact both of the monks, that can they drop her somewhere. Now you see the paradox that you are not allowed to touch the woman and yet the woman is asking for some help. So one of the monk, what he did exactly, he carried her and he dropped her to her destination. While he was doing that, so the other monk thought that it is not appropriate for a Buddhist monk to touch a woman, leave alone, let alone he is carrying her. So when he dropped her, he confronted him and he asked why you did what you did. You are not supposed to touch the woman, but yes, you are touching the woman, dropping her, and you are carrying her. You are carrying her. So the first monk replied, I dropped her quite some time back. It is you that is carrying her. It is you that is carrying her. So consequences or probably inference, because any story or such other issues will naturally have some kind of inference, isn't it? So the inference is, it is not clear to you maybe as of now, but if you will see the question of essay paper of 2020, and there was this specifically mentioned topic that a ship doesn't sink because it floats in the water, it sinks definitely because water gets into it. I have just rephrased that. So you see the connection. The connection is what? That whom you are carrying, it is not what you are physically doing, it is what you are mentally doing, which will have a necessarily confrontation and retribution on yourself. It will have repercussion, but it is your mental strength which derives and decides your behavior. So this was one of the Kobo stories of the Chinese mythologies. I hope that probably sometime, if the essay topic is something based on the mental issues or the carrying someone in the mindset, we talk about the internalization. We talk about that our society, we have internalized our religious dogmas, and we have internalized caste issues. So you see that it is the carrying of something, some dogmas, which can be problematic. If it is done in good faith or greater good, then it can be fine. So I believe that I've just given you one of the introductions on the issues of the mental topic, and now you can read the introduction based on this anecdote. Further, how you are carrying or progressing in that essay is important. For example, ship sinking. So you see that probably there are so many statements, and in fact, yesterday we were discussing about one editorial in the Indian Expresses that there are no poor people. It is the only poor places. So you see, again, it is some kind of mental setup. So the purpose of any essay or the philosophical essay one is also to contemporize the issue, that how you are finding the relevancy with the contemporary event that is ongoing in any society, specifically India, because your essay has to be 70% in the Indian context and 30% can be contextualized as per the international things. You should not base your essay on any of the international events also. So based on that, we are not supposed to think that where we are coming from, it is the examination, and know what we are doing will definitely help us. So this was about the topic. Now we will resort back to our topic again. So today there is news from paper 1 which can be clubbed in any of the paper, Global Hunger Index. Further, there is this issue of the Election Commission MOU signing with the Gujarat government, and further on the open editorial page you will see case teachers. There is news blocking of Twitter accounts, further revenue policing, KamiKaze drones, Indian poverty data. So these are the news which we will discuss it. So first news is Global Hunger Index. Now you have to see this in consonance with there is another news of Rajnath Singh, that how media, NGOs and such other organizations are trying to defame the people. So these two news has to be seen in the in some consonance. So for example, the Global Hunger Index is comprehensively measuring and tracking hunger at global, regional and national level. First, these are the 4 criteria: undernourishment, child stunting, child wasting, child mortality. So these are the 4 criteria on which GHI is figured out. Now it is calculated at a 100-point scale, reflecting the severity of hunger. 0 is the best score, implies no hunger, and 100 is the worst. So Indian score is, how much is the Indian score? Indian score is something near 20.9. So the GHI is an annual report. Each set of GHI score uses data from 5-year period, 2017 and 2021. Now, from 2020, we are suffering the problem of COVID. So naturally, our score was set to get worse. But the issue is that government has taken many measures so that GHI can be, or hunger can be controlled. This was one of the issues. So the government is saying that it is in, implicated agenda by some foreign agencies and NGOs to defame the India, because India is taking a developing course and it is becoming the fastest growing nation. So this was that. So the problem is that who is making the GHI? So it is an NGO which is making the GHI. Now these are the data which you have to remember. Indian Express. Child wasting, India's child wasting rate, low weight for average, is 19.3, which is worse than the levels recorded in 15 point. Naturally, you see the consequences that 15.1 was the data, in 2000 it was 17.5. Height for any country in the world and derives the region average owing to the India's large population. Underinvestment, what is the data? 16.3 in 19. See, these are the data which you have to remember. Okay, and probably it will be helpful in paper 1 or for that matter any of the papers. Okay, say any of the paper, it is important. It implies that 224.3 million people in India, that is out of 828 people globally, are considered undernourished. Further, the indicator measures the proportion of the population facing chronic deficiency of dietary energies intake. Child stunting and mortality, India has shown improvement in child stunting and child mortality. Child stunting, low height for age, has declined from 38 point. So these are the, so where you will use it. Any idea? For example, what are the things on which India has moved from worse to better? So these are the data, or overall the health infrastructure, that probably there was a presumption that health infrastructure crumbled after the COVID crisis. So you can show that no, it has not crumbled, but it is, we are improving on certain aspect. Child mortality rate under the age of 5 has dropped from 4.6 to 4.3 in the same competitive period. So you see, the government has taken many measures. For example, PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, and in different states, different yojanas are taken so that the necessary staple crops can be given to any of the poor peoples. But the issue is that what is the efficacy of it. So if you have to see the global hunger index, then you have to see it in a wider context. The context can be, and the context is generally what is the overall condition of sanitations, because the sanitation is the part which is most responsible for child stunting and mortality, along with the nutrition. Further, and as we were discussing day before yesterday, that if the woman is 10th pass, if they are educational and literacy level, there are chances that 48% of the child mortality cases will decrease. So educational outcome, which is figuratively we have the literacy rate of 70%, but there is a difference between operational literacy and functional literacy. So largely we focused upon the case of functional literacy, not operational literacy. What is functional literacy, if I may say? Then it is that that you are able to just sign your name. And what is operational? That you can use it. So there is a focus and emphasis is upon functional literacy and not on operational literacy. So this is the one of the reasons because of which there is a problem in the issues of child mortality. So these are the data. Now because it has spread over 3 different pages in the article, reading GHI. So the first part is that India should not decry it, India should not see it some kind of sabotage. Rather it is supposed to improve upon the condition that is prevailing in the India, particularly related to primary healthcare infrastructure and nutritional component. For example, they also in various sources, they also took the examples of that what the Tamil Nadu government is doing and such other issues. So you see there is a multiple viewpoint of this topic. So there is a class scheduled on 30th of this month where this topic GHI will be discussed in detail in the editorial section. Probably there will be a link of all comprehensive analysis of that section, and you will be getting a PDF which will be available for everyone, I believe. And from there you can get all the perspective relating the topic, because it is in the developing phase as of now. There will be all along the news. Now there is a second news, MOU with the Election Commission, and you can find it on the very first page, where Gujarat firm signs MOU with the Election Commission to name and seem workers who do not vote. So figuratively it raises an ethical issues, and if we say literary, then it also raises an issue that what is the difference between the rights and duty, fundamental rights and fundamental duties. It is the duty of the civilian to vote for elections, any of the election, and voting in the election, is it a fundamental right? It is a legal right, it is not a fundamental right. So the issue is that in many of the organizations, even the PSUs or the private organizations, people take leave and they don't go for the voting. So how to resolve this conflict? So this whole process is trying to create a setup whereby those people who are taking the leaves are not voting. So figuratively it is a kind of moral turpitude, dereliction of the duty, because there is their duty and they are not abiding by their duty. So they are not exerting their legal right. So it throws a ethical gamut where you have to see that what is the problem. One part. So according to the MOU, it was signed by the various organizations in the Gujarat, whereby PSUs were also joined, private industries were also joined. But what do you think? Is it good or is it bad? Forcing someone who is not voting, and there can be multiple and multitude of reasons because of which somebody don't vote. One is that maybe they are registered at their native places, and they are granted the leave of only 1 day. So visiting and going and coming back can take another 2-3 days. So isn't it impinging on the private right of individual or privacy of the individual? That you are just showing that probably you are not understanding the whole context. Maybe there can be another reason. For example, you will always encounter the people, and this is a reality, that you will always encounter the people who say that they don't wait, they don't vote, and the reason is, they are completely alienated with the whole election system. They think that anybody who will come there or who will be ruling the roost or ruling the political organization is corrupt. So there is a detachment from the whole election process, and this detachment is not only limited to India, it can be seen in the US also. Further, there are long lines at the voting, and there are so many data whereby it is saying that it is the urban area where the people are not voting. In the rural places, the voting percentage is generally more than 70%. But in the urban area, people generally don't go for vote. Further, there are certain organizations which don't grant you leave for voting. Say for example, you are a registered voter in Rajasthan and you are living in Delhi. For voting in Rajasthan, you are granted only 1 day. So you have to go there and come back there, which generally anybody can think generally takes around 3 days. So shaming and naming the people who were not voting can be problematic. This is one of the part. So the MOU has been signed with the individual units as well, industry body, and the attempt to get more on board will continue till polling day. Assembly elections are due in the state later this year. While EC said it is an attempt to address voters' apathy, the decision to name and shame those who don't vote may be seen as a coercive step towards the compulsory voting. Every voice has a right to be heard. This is what our country was founded on. If people are not waiting, they are not voting. Maybe they are not voting because they are less empathetic to the whole scenario. So even not voting, there is a silent protest. We devised the tool of nota, but what is the efficacy nota is serving? Nothing. People who are registering, it is not changing the discourse of the political party. So compulsory voting generally creates the percentage. There is a term called donkey voting, and the term is used in case of Australia. There is a percentage of 95% in the elections. Donkey voting. Donkey voting is something where people just go and vote without thinking, and probably chronologically, if they will see any name and probably they will find any resemblance, so they will just vote on this. So even such kind of voting can just derail all the process of the democracy. So the other method is, in this whole context or whole saga, would be to create awareness, not to name and shame the people. And if naming and shaming of people is considered, generally it pertains to a kind of vigilantism, moral vigilante kind of thing. But yes, voting has to be done because there are so many people who just for the purpose, maybe long line and such other issues has to be, generally don't prefer to vote. So in this context, even the Election Commission has devised or set then committee for the overall understanding of online voting. So again, it is a developing news, and probably there will be more comprehensive view of this. So case teacher. Case teacher is something called, according to various committee and commission, the condition of the teachers in India is not that good. They are involved in many other activities. For example, census. It is the teacher, the primary teacher who goes for the census, or who conduct the census exercise first. Second, any of the usurious activities where teachers are not involved. So these are the other part. Third, probably any of the policy implementation, it is the primary teachers who are the first point of contact. So various committee and commission recommended that the absenteeism in the primary school has to be controlled so that the educational outcome can improve. And that's why they said that teachers are case teachers. Now we are reading this in the context of a newer development which have happened in Andhra Pradesh, where the teacher have to download an app and it will be geospatial app showing your face and figures and registering that at that time you were on what longitude and what latitude. So it is creating a kind of surveillance system. Surveillance in the form that you will be there will be an online surveillance of your overall presence. So they are saying that Latika Kapoor, who wrote the article, is saying that it is not the right way to approach it. One. Two, there was a survey in 2017 by some independent organizations, and they said that the only 16.1% of the teachers are absent from their primary school. Okay, and that also due to some legitimate reasons. So there is a wider perception that the teachers are absent, but in reality the data shows something different. Third, the important part that has to be understood is that everywhere it was said that there should be a convergence of the primary school and secondary school, and the primary school teachers generally oppose it. One reason of the opposition is that there is an infrastructural gap at the school. Second, they will be burdened with the overall work. There is a gap. So in this context, it was devised that teacher attendance, these are the basic recommendations, facial recognition system, attendance, facial recognition, teachers attendance is recorded twice a day and sent to the administrative official via SMS, informing them about the longitude and latitude. The idea of a surveillance system is to control the teacher has been tried very time, and this was the reason. Initially we have heard about the school inspectors and such other people who frequently visited the teaching, primary school teaching, even the panchayat scrutiny was there, but largely these mechanism has failed. So all these three policy documents of the government of India, National Teacher Survey, so argued for treating teachers as a professional and not as the cased employees whose presence has to be constantly monitored. 2 decades ago, UNESCO described the attitude of the policy maker towards teachers as a silent crisis. So you see that the larger context is that in case of teachers in India, there is a significant gap in teaching methods. What we call it? Teaching the students, pedagogic process. What is pedagogy? Teaching the primary school. And what is andragogy? Yeah, adult. Okay, pedagogy and andragogy. So there is this skill mismatch. And for this, many other organizations are taking the initiative. Some of the organizations are no, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is for the student. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is for the student. This organization by Wipro, okay, they are teaching the teachers, and further there is a teacher training programs at various devices at the various level, and even recommended by the Niti Aayog, and schools, primary schools teachers from various institutions like Assam and other people generally go there and understand the whole context. Okay, so this is the how you are solving the problems of teacher with the pedagogic process, infrastructure and the overall school ecosystem. Yes, the recommendation is that there should be convergence between primary school and higher school, but there is a negative part of that also, which is that if you will follow the method of converging the primary and the secondary school, it has often been witnessed that the dropout rate increases further. Now, the third news is blocking Twitter accounts. So, there was a petition filed by someone in the High Court, where say that you are arbitrarily blocking the Twitter account without giving any reasons. So, the confidentiality issues was there. Okay, the government is doing it in a very secretive manner, and it is a reminiscent of the colonial era where any newspaper without giving any justification was banned, or anybody could have been thrown into the jail. So the High Court said that it is not the rule of the law which you are following. So probably it raises two important questions, that how much regulation should be on the social media. Second, what are the role and issues of the social media? So, the Twitter lawyer argued about the law of proportionality laid by the Supreme Court in Puttaswamy judgment, and as we have discussed just 3 days back, we are not going into the detail of that. Even High Court said that it is unfair, that you are not supposed to block the Twitter accounts of everyone, and there should be a rule of law which has to be followed, and you can give the warning, and if it is a repeated offender, then naturally you can ban it. So this was the part. But what is the issue? So you see that the social media people generally have the cases of anonymity. They see in most of the cases some account with vague names or generic names create the account, and they try to influence the people, and you can see that there are some Twitter handles Netaji or Desi Kaddu. Such kind of account is always there. You will find that they create an opinion, Rajaji. There are so many such generic names, but they create a network effect, indirect network effect, and we all know that what is network effect, because you gave the opinion and it is followed by all the people who are present there. So the platforms are business models that create marketplaces to match different party with complementary interest, relying on what economists call as network effect. Because for Twitter, if you won't give some opinion, it can be increased, it can be accentuated further. Social media platforms connect consumers with digital content creator, and it has to be understood that there is no regulation on the digital content creation, and typically monetize their interaction through advertisement revenues. Since platforms do not generally create their content, there are no responsibilities for what user produce, and thus exempt from the libel, defamation and other laws and regulation that govern traditional medias like newspapers and television. First, regulation is the part in the newspaper or the digital media, that in case of violation, and it is not true with the social media impact. And there is one very famous incident, and because I believe that a week before there was a news that there was a coup in China. There was a coup in China against Xi Jinping. Okay, and nearly 80 kilometers the armed forces were moving, and it was led by their military premier. So in fact, we have seen many incidences. So there was this news by RBI deputy chairman, and there was a conflict between RBI deputy chairman and the SBI chairman. So Raghuram Rajan at that time was the governor of the RBI, and he said that we have found the solution of creating, and the SBI chairman and the RBI deputy governor will be locked in a room. Okay, so this was this exact statement he made, that he will be locked in the room, and the impact was share market fall by 1.3%. they one day percentage 1.3 based on some kind of sarcasm. So you see that what is the network effect, and such statements are amplified by the overall social media influences, and this is the reason because of which social media has to be controlled. So social media platforms by contrast are narrowcasters. Narrowcasters is that ability to pinpoint the algorithm, choose content exclusively, what they think you want to hear and see, make frequent personalized editorial decision based on your browsing behavior on their platforms, and geolocation information taken from your cell phone. So you see that maybe one can make the statement, but others are generally following it. So in such case, what can be done? And in fact, there was a news that the government of India has arbitrarily banned 32 of the people's YouTube channels, which generally were shown as an Indian channels, but ultimately they were Pakistani channels. But in this case, they was said that it is security risk to our internal security because they are professing and radicalizing the people. So based on this, they was banned. But if you are doing it just because no reasons is given, we are banning you, then that is problematic and unfair. So explicitly rule about what is or is not allowed, these platforms are implemented only when necessarily, as they can constrain its expressions and are expensive to implementations. So these are the problematic part with the social media, and there should be a regulation. And there was frequent discussions about that we are supposed to link it with the Aadhaar card and PAN card, any of the government mandated ID cards, so that issue can be created or regulation can be created. But such issues are generally not abided by, and it is not recommended also. So there must be a kind of platform. Sri Krishna committee recommended some of the issues, but nobody follows it as of now. This internal regulation committee, and even how they work, it is not clear. And this is the bone of contention between the government of India and the Twitter or many other Facebook organizations. So there is this revenue policing. Why it is in the news? Because of the murder and rape case in Uttarakhand, and it was a kind of policing system which was developed by the British in the hilly areas based on the presumption that there is no crime or there is very low frequency of the crime. So civilian authorities like Kanungo, Lekpal and such other people formulated the laws, and if there is a seriousness in the nature of the crime, such issues were transferred to the police authority. Now what is the problem we are witnessing or facing in this case? The issue is that you see that if there is a severity of the crime, then the issue is recommended to SP, who will transfer this case to some other person. Now there was frequent, and it is followed in certain regions of the Uttarakhand hilly regions. So transferring, coming back, reporting by the civilian authority generally takes time. And the issue is, say probably somebody is missing. Someone files a complaint that some people are missing. So the nature of the law is not clear that they will be included. It will be reported to the civilian authorities or the police authorities, because missing is not that grave crime as that of rape or murder. So generally it is said that around 15 or 20 days, people generally take 15 to 20 days to resolve or come at the conclusion that this case will be a civilian of nature or of the police nature. So it is creating two problems. One problem is very fundamental, and it is separation of power, isn't it? The civilian authorities are also exercising the judicial powers. So based on this, Uttarakhand High Court in 2018 itself said that this issue must go on, must not be there. Revenue policing should be completely dispensed away with. But you see that they are vested interest. Having judicial power in a civilian authority is seen, and probably it can be very important for those people who want to earn profit out of it. So letting it go by that entrenched authority is very hard. Now, so And the issue, because of that Ankita Bhandari murder case, as we know, is there, and they are so, yes, what was the purpose of this British government? That, they never explicitly said that the crimes are low, but, it will be having a really high revenue cost. Completely setting up the police organization and the members. And further, if civil organization and civilian authorities are doing the investigation, there is no speciality in that. So the nature of the investigating authority is also questionable. So why we are discussing it? Revenue policing completely. First, it can be highlighted that there still some part of the colonial rules are still ruling, is still being abided by in the country, and how state is not doing enough. See, policing is mandatory requirement, and you have to do it one way or other. Okay, and that policing part is not given to the residents of the Uttarakhand. So this was about the revenue policing. Now, this KamiKaze. I believe that most of you have heard this term, KamiKaze, where? No idea? See, Japan used it in the strikes against the USA in the Second World War. KamiKaze. The modus operandi was that, they just went there and completely, bombed an area and returned. So anything which has the issue of, completely going there and doing it in a very significant lower amount of time is returned as the KamiKaze. So the whole issue of KamiKaze is that, Russia has used the KamiKaze on attacking the Ukraine. So what is KamiKaze drones? Switchblade drones. These are small unmanned aircraft that are packed with explosive that can be flown directly at a tank or a group of troops that are destroyed when it hits the target and explodes. They are called switchblade because their blade-like wings spring out on their launch. The drones have the capacity of going past traditional defenses to strike its target, and has also low cost of fraction of what the larger counterparts do. These are lethal drones, are difficult to detect on radar, and they can have even programmed to hit the target without human intervention based on facial recognition. See how ultrasound or infrared completely work. That, how much the surface area is there. Based on if there is a reflection, then it will be there in the radar. And that's why B-52 bombers and such other radar defying machines are invented. In particular, these are very small. So this is now being used as in traditional setup, different than what we are already having. They use the significance, how you will use it. Prelims, it is important from the perspective of prelims also. But the other part, that suppose if you are asked the question that the nature of the warfare is changing, and in case of such a change, Agnipath is good initiative. Critically appraise. What is Agnipath? We all know it. Why it was formulated? We all know it. In last year alone, by 2020 alone, China cut down the strength of its defense force by 1.1 million personnel. The same was nearly 5 lakh people for the US Army. Why? Because nature of warfare is changing. Small drones, low operational cost, and AI driven warfare. What is the focus of Agnipath? One. Two, so that other expenses like salaries and pensions can be diverted to technological warfare. So you can give an example that how nearly increasing KamiKaze drones are being used to change the nature of the warfare. And there is this data that around 415 million people in India have been claimed out of poverty between 2005 and 2019 to 21. Important part, that COVID was not covered in this. And within incidences of poverty falling from 55% to just over 16% over this period, according to the global reports. India's MPI value and incidences of poverty were both more than halved. the multi-dimensional poverty index fell from 2.283 in 2005 to 0.122, and such other issues. The issue is that what is multi-dimensional poverty index, UNDP and OHPI in 2010. It is based on the idea poverty is not unidimensional, depends upon income, and individual may lack several basic needs like education, health. These are the three parameters of the education, health and standard of living for finding multi-dimensional poverty index. Clear? So this is the data where you can use it, that we have achieved some improvement in bringing out the poverty alleviation program, or show the role of poverty alleviation program in the overall developmental discourse. So there you can use the data. Okay, not specifically important from the point of view of the prelims, but yes, it can be used any of the GS or any of the paper, GS 1, 2, 3 or anywhere. Okay, with that note I will finish the class today. Okay, thank you.